Our distinguished professor, Dr. Craig Evans, is with me here in the old city of Jerusalem. We are following the Via Dolorosa, the Way of the Cross. 14 stations. We're going to share with you a few that we know are anchored in the gospel account of the Easter story.
Moira and I just exited a place that celebrates or commemorates where Jesus was whipped. It's called the flagellation. The Romans, of course, prepped, you might say, the crucifixion victims with a severe beating from the top of his back all the way down his back, right to the backs of his legs. It was brutal. It set them up for an agonizing death on the cross. And it was here also that Jesus received the cross and began his carrying the cross on this way of suffering, this way of sorrow, which is what the Latin name means, Via Dolorosa. And it was just the beginning of what would be a horrible, painful 6 hours of suffering before he finally died on the cross.
One of the most troubling scenes in the movie The Passion was the scourging, the bloody scourging of the Lord. Dr. Evans, here in the second station on the Way of the Cross, this is the place where it happened.
Yeah, there's a good chance that this is the very place. We're looking at the actual stones that date back to the 1st century. This is part of the Antonia that Herod the Great built and named in honor of Mark Antony.
This was a fortress.
That's what it was, and of course it became a Roman garrison here in Jerusalem. So this is the place where Jesus would have been taken, and of course he's awaiting the final word of being whipped and beaten and given the cross. Here in this holding cell, the guards would have treated him very cruelly. And the Gospels tell us this. Mark 15, parallel passages in the other Gospels, where he is stripped of his clothes and they put on him a
crown of thorns.
A crown of thorns and a purple tunic, and then mock him, hail Caesar, hail Jesus, the king, and they think it's really funny. But what you're looking at here carved in stone is what really is a game board, an ancient game board, but there was nothing fun or funny about it. And you can see the circle and a square. And as we understand it, the way the Romans played this game, the soldiers would have their tokens and place them, you can see the little places in the square, and it's just like playing Monopoly, a game board. And so their tokens were there, and then they rolled the dice over the circle. And depending on what came up, someone could move his token. And once you went around and won the game, you could then punch the prisoner.
Really?
The soldiers were taking turns beating on Jesus. And we think that Jesus may well have been chained, confined right over there to our right. There are some very old stones that date back perhaps to the 1st century. And that's how Jesus was abused through the night until the actual crucifixion began later in the morning. So this is a troubling place, and it reminds us of the suffering that Jesus went through.
Games and mockery and so much pain. We're at the 14th and final station of the cross in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Dr. Evans, does the light streaming into this sacred place affirm that this is the place where Jesus was buried?
It might well. Archaeologists and historians believe that this probably is the place where Jesus was buried. It has a history that dates back to Queen Helen. She was the mother of Emperor Constantine. She asked the locals, where was Jesus buried? They said, right here. They dug down, and guess what they found? Early 1st century tombs. The village memory probably was right. This could well be the place.
Well, this is a magnificent piece of architecture.
Oh, indeed it is. It has a lot of history here, too. It is fascinating to visit this place.
And we looked downstairs at an outcropping of rock. What do they think that represents?
Well, it is believed that outcropping of rock is actually part of the area where people were crucified. So that outcropping could be the very place or close to the place where Jesus was crucified.
So 2,000 years ago, this was outside the city wall.
That's right. It didn't look like it looks now, of course. This was built later.
Well, Thankfully, this is not the end of the story. We serve a living Savior. Next time, the resurrection. Join us.